Hey everyone, it's Alexander Robinson. Welcome to the channel. So another year has come and gone, and you know what that means. Time for movie lists. So join me as I talk about my top 10 favorite movies of this year, 2023. Now, to address the elephant in the room, don't you usually put out your worst of list first? I do, but here's the thing about 2023. It's been a very average year for movies, in my opinion. There's been a handful of really good movies that I'll talk about soon enough, but also some mediocre movies. And of all the movies that I've seen this year that I didn't like, there's not enough that I've seen that warrants making a worst of list. Because, I mean, I could just tell you the movies this year that I didn't like. 65 was probably the most boring movie I saw this year. The Blumhouse 1-2 punch of Exorcist Believer and Five Nights at Freddy's were awful. We got the first Marvel movie of the year that I didn't like, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and all the DCEU movies except for Blue Beetle I thought were crap. And the worst movie I've seen this year was Meg 2: The Trench. But really at the end of the day, it's like, that's a monster movie, 2 horror movies, and 4 superhero movies. That's a pretty boring list if I were going to make a list of the worst movies of this year. And in the case of the DCEU movies, I'm like, the series is dead. Why am I going to waste my time just picking on these movies when that series is done? That being said, I will be doing an updated DC Extended Universe ranking video now that the series has ended, but I just didn't feel comfortable with a lot of these movies ending up on a worst of list. So I just figured, screw it, I won't do one this year because it's exhausting to do, admittedly. I personally don't have a problem with doing worst of lists as long as you don't obsess over the movies that you're criticizing for years to come, because you need help if you're constantly just dragging a movie through the mud that's nearly 6 years old, Last Jedi haters. Maybe I'll pick up with doing worst of lists next year, or I may just scrap it entirely for the foreseeable future. I don't know, so we'll see what happens next year. But in terms of this year, the movies that came out in 2023 that I really liked, it was actually pretty easy narrowing this list down to 10 movies because I didn't have the same feeling I've had for the past couple of years. I want to include this movie and I want to include that movie, but that's over 10. Screw it, I'm doing 15. I never got that feeling at all. But that's not to say there weren't some great movies this year that, if I decided to do a 15, would have made my list. I mean, for example, Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, a really great movie that did not end up on my list. It almost did. This would actually have been one of the few times a Scorsese movie ended up on my best of list, but it didn't quite reach it. There were also a lot of other movies this year that I really dug, such as John Wick Chapter 4, Dungeons & Dragons, Creed 3, Poor Things, Maestro, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. In hindsight, there were a lot of really great movies that came out in 2023, but at the end of the day, it was actually quite easy to pick 10 movies this year that really worked for me. And also, I don't have anything in terms of the biggest surprise of the year. Normally, it's something where I'm not looking forward to a movie whatsoever, and then I leave going, wow, that was actually pretty good. I don't have anything like that this year, but these movies that I picked for my top 10 list are the ones that either really hit me on an emotional core or were just flat out entertaining as hell. So without any further delay, let's just hop into this list. Number 10. Elemental. To say that this year has been a craptacular year for Disney is quite the understatement because they've had so many movies that were just mediocre or bad, and most of their movies bombed. Like, they just kept releasing box office bomb after box office bomb. But if there was one bright spot in terms of a financial success, it would be Pixar's Elemental. And I'm so happy that this movie actually turned around into being a financial hit, considering that when it opened against The Flash, it made less money, and then The Flash was considered a bomb. But Elemental, as a movie itself, is basically a love story at the end of the day. And I really like the chemistry between the two characters. The world that they create is very imaginative. Thomas Newman's score is incredible. I just found myself really invested in this movie, and I'm so glad that it was prematurely called a box office bomb because it's a really good movie. Number 9. Joyride. If there was any movie this year that might get the closest to being a surprise for me, it's probably this, because I can't remember the last time I saw a raunchy R-rated comedy and laughed this hard. This is written and directed by Adele Lim, who wrote Crazy Rich Asians, and for her first directorial effort, she made a great film. Like, I was laughing hard at some of these absurd scenarios. The cast that is in this movie all work really well together, have their funny as shit moments, and the movie has a strong heart at the end of the day when Ashley Park's character finds out the truth about her birth mother. It really hits hard. So for everything that we've seen before, all the outrageous scenarios, the fact that this movie can pull off some emotional heartstrings like that at the end is well worthy enough to be on a best of list for me. Number 8. Oppenheimer. This movie originally was not going to make my cut for the best films of 2023, but upon further consideration, this is truly an epic movie in every sense of the word. Christopher Nolan's direction is, of course, as spot on as ever. Ludwig Göransson's score is haunting, it's mesmerizing, and the cast is fantastic. Everyone's talking about Robert Downey Jr. and him possibly being up for Best Supporting Actor, which he deservingly should be, but I feel like the conversation around him is overshadowing how great Cillian Murphy is as J. Robert Oppenheimer. His performance as a man who is determined to achieve this scientific accomplishment only to regret it later in life is truly mesmerizing. Cillian Murphy should be up for Best Actor in my opinion, because he's that good. If I'm being realistic, I don't know what movie could win Best Picture. I just don't, but I would have to pick Oppenheimer as the movie that wins Best Picture for me, just because it seems like the popular one. That's my opinion. It might be number 8 on my personal best of list, but I can certainly see this as the runner-up for Best Picture. But that's if I'm being realistic. If I'm in my headspace of what I want to see, there's another movie that I'd rather be the front runner. Moving on. Number 7. Barbie. If I would have gone back to 15 years ago, or hell, even 10 years ago, and told my younger self, hey, you're going to be watching a big screen adaptation of Barbie in the theaters by yourself, and you're going to end up calling it one of the best films of the year, I would say, fuck off. There's no way in hell that's happening. But thanks to Greta Gerwig's direction and her script with Noah Baumbach, this truly is one of the best movies of the year. Like, that is insane to say, because leading up to it, I thought everyone was excited in the hipster irony phase, but no, this actually is a great film. It's really funny, it's got some great production design. There are a lot of jokes in this movie that had me laughing hard. In fact, there are 2 jokes in particular that had me laughing the hardest, one of them being the jab at the Snyder Cut. But the cast is also fantastic. Margot Robbie, America Ferrera, Ryan Gosling, Alexandra Shipp, Michael Cera, Will Ferrell. So many fantastic people in this movie that give it their all. And again, like with Robert Downey Jr. and Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling is certainly a front runner for Best Supporting Actor. He is that good as Ken. And if I'm allowed to bring up Barbenheimer one last time, it is kind of weird how one of the big subject matters of Barbie kind of ties in perfectly well to Oppenheimer. If you've seen both movies and if you've seen my review for Oppenheimer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, it's a really great movie. It may not be my pick for Best Picture, but I would certainly give this Best Original or Adapted Screenplay, whatever they decide to nominate in terms of that category, because that one speech alone that America Ferrera delivers on the struggles of being a woman in society is so brilliant and so well done. Number 6. Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. To say that this is the best Marvel movie that we got this year is quite an understatement, and that's coming from somebody who actually really liked the Marvels. But really, let's be honest, Across the Spiderverse is excellent on all accounts. It's one of the most visually vibrant animated movies I have ever seen, just juggling so many different animation styles. It is wacky, it's insane, but also has a lot of heart, just like the first movie. Miles Morales continues to be a great character in this series of films. I absolutely adore Haley Steinfeld's Gwen Stacy, and who knew that Jason Schwartzman as the Spot, a character that when we saw the trailers looked like a joke, would end up being the most terrifying villain of superhero movies in a while. I cannot wait to see how they wrap up the story in Beyond the Spiderverse whenever that movie comes out, because even before the writer's strike happened and actor's strike, there were animation issues that delayed the movie. So whenever Beyond the Spiderverse comes out, I cannot wait. And that being said, while this may be the best Marvel movie of the year, it's not my favorite pick for the best comic book movie overall this year. No, that honor goes to number 5. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Does this film borrow a lot from Spiderverse in terms of animation style? Oh, absolutely. Like, you'd have to be blind to not see the similarities. But what I liked about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is that it makes the animation style a little more grimy and sketchy. It fits perfectly well with the dark feel of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as they originally were from the comics. The cast is fantastic. Jackie Chan is great as Splinter. The actress who voices April O'Neil does a great job. And I really love the decision to finally have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles voiced by actual teenagers. Like, their camaraderie is probably the best I've ever seen in any of the movies. One thing that my brother pointed out when watching the trailers is that he didn't really seem that interested in watching it because a lot of the dialogue seemed like improv. And there certainly is truth to that, but I feel like it just makes the relationship between the brothers feel that more natural, that these actors are allowed to really play off each other. And, you know, that's kind of Seth Rogen's writing to begin with. This is a great movie overall. I think it's the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie by far. I like the 1990 movie, but this one just kicks the shell out of that one. Sorry to all my fellow 90s kids out there, but this 90s kid prefers this version of TMNT. Number 4. Polite Society. Now, I'm probably going to be the only person out there that has this on a best of list. Over the past couple of years, I really wanted to try to seek out more obscure and small-scale genre movies. And this movie, when I saw the trailer for it, seemed like it was right up my alley. It's got some really great martial arts sequences, the action's exciting, and there's a lot of really goofy moments throughout the film. And I also really love how this is a movie about sisters really looking after each other. When one of them is kind of hoaxed into marrying this rich doctor, only to find out that there's a dark secret surrounding the doctor and his mother. It's wacky, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense a lot of the times, but the movie just embraces its creativity that I bought into it. It's really fun and probably the most underrated movie that I can think of 2023. If you haven't seen it, I really encourage you to check it out. Number 3. The Holdovers. The more I've really thought about this movie, the more I've grown to really love it. I mean, everything about this movie is so well done, from Alexander Payne's direction, the way it looks like a movie filmed in the 70s but doesn't rely on a 70s aesthetic to remind you of what time period it's in. The script is excellent. The performances from everyone is so well done. Paul Giamatti is fantastic. Davine Joy Randolph is so good that she's the front runner for Best Supporting Actress, and I don't think anybody even comes close to touching her. Maybe Rachel McAdams from Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret would be a close second, but even then, it's a great movie all around. I just love the look of this. I love the feeling that it gives me, where it makes me feel happy and yet sad all at the same time. It's a holiday movie for the people that have nobody to spend the holidays with. And in that sense, it makes me sad. But seeing these three characters kind of bond together and have a better understanding for each of them and why they act the way they do makes me happy. It is so good, it's so well done, and I really see this as being a new holiday classic, especially for that specific crowd. Number 2. Past Lives. I went into this movie knowing nothing about it. I didn't see a trailer for it. I don't think I've even heard of the movie until the weekend it came out. But I went and saw it, and I found myself just absolutely loving it. There are similarities to this movie and Richard Linklater's The Before trilogy, and rightfully so, but Past Lives is very much its own movie. It has a different background in terms of the director of this film, Celine Song. It feels like it spans across a longer period of time, and it has something that the Before trilogy doesn't have, that sense of what if? What if my life had gone a different route and I ended up spending my life with this person here? Would things have been different? Would I have been happier? It's something that I constantly kept thinking about after leaving the movie. And that's really the true sign of a great film, that you keep thinking about it days after you see it. Greta Lee is absolutely phenomenal, and she's my pick for Best Actress this year. Teo Yo is really good, and John Magaro as the main character's husband is fantastic as well. He's a character that in any other type of movie like this would have been the egotistical husband who feels threatened, but this movie is smart enough to not make him that character, and you really grow to like the guy. I feel like there's a lot more that can be said about this movie, and this is certainly one that is going to stick around for me for a long time. I really love this film, but it's not my number one. It actually would have been my number one movie, and it was my favorite movie of the year for a long time, until the actual number one movie came in. Speaking of which, number one, Godzilla -1. Are y'all surprised? Probably not, but I actually feel justified in saying that this is my favorite movie of the year. Obviously, I am a massive Godzilla fan. I've been watching these movies since I was 7 or 8 years old, but the fact that this movie has gotten the critical reception that it's gotten, and that so many non-Godzilla fans are coming out saying, yeah, this is one of the best movies of the year, makes me feel vindicated in saying that this is my favorite film of the year. I am planning to do a spoiler review in the new year for this movie because there's a lot that can be said about Godzilla -1, but to basically go over what's been said in my review, the human story is the heart of this movie. It deals with PTSD, survivor's guilt. You really grow to love all the characters and you're invested in them. And everything involving Godzilla himself is terrifying. From the opening sequence where we see him as a pre-mutated Godzillasaurus, to when he actually causes a rampage in Tokyo, to the big climax of the film, there is not a single sequence in this movie involving the King of the Monsters that is forgettable. This is the most terrifying Godzilla has ever been, and thus you're more invested in the human story. So much so that there were actually 2 noticeable sequences in this movie that brought me to tears. I will talk about all this stuff in my spoiler review because I really could go on talking about Godzilla for hours, but to wrap things up on this video here, I knew that this was my favorite movie of the year the second the credits rolled. I just think it's so well done. It's another great addition to a 70-year-long franchise, and this is a movie that I will be talking about for years to come. I absolutely adore it, and I am so glad that this movie is getting a much wider appreciation beyond the Godzilla fan base. The fact that so many people who are casual fans or not fans at all are singing the praises for this movie just makes me so happy. And for all that, that's why I have to say Godzilla -1 is my favorite movie of 2023. And there you go. Those are my picks for my 10 favorite movies of 2023. I hope you enjoyed the list. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you for being subscribed to this channel and supporting it since it's gone on for 10 years. Even though I didn't hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year, I was close. I mean, 9,500 subscribers is pretty close to 10,000, but I'll be reaching that number very soon. Thank y'all so much again, and now I want to hear what y'all think are the best movies of 2023. Whatever they are, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button to get notifications. You can also find me on my theme park and travel channel, Alexander Robinson's Travel Channel, and don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the new year.